and it's rock, paper, scissors says shoot anyway. So
wait,
yeah.
Wait, what? We're an hour 10 into this podcast, and we're about to have the
We're many years into this podcast.
What is it?
Rock, paper, scissors says shoot.
What neighborhood are you from?
I was not raised by barbarians or wolves.
What do you mean? Why is that? It's an unnecessary word.
No, it's not. It's cadence and rhythm.
Rock,
paper, scissors,
shoot.
No, see, that's the other person doesn't know the timing. If says is in there, rock, paper, scissors, says shoot, you know after says it's a quick fire. But rock, paper, scissors, everybody stares at each other like it's a Western showdown, and then they just throw hands. And then somebody always is like, well, he copied me, and then you got to get a third party involved. It's rock, paper, scissors, says shoot. Cadence and rhythm and timing.
If somebody did says shoot to me, one, I'd look at them like they had 8 heads, and 2, I'd be like, that threw off my rhythm.
No.
Welcome to the opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. Trevor Sikkema, Connor Rogers, joining you guys for a very special Mailbag edition of Stock Up, Stock Down, where we give you, the people. That was my best bait impression I could do while on a podcast. We give you guys the keys to the show, and we're going to do Stock Up, Stock Down, but it's going to be 10 names, 5 from me, 5 from Connor. They're all going to be listener suggested. We told you that we read the comments, and we did a couple of episodes ago. We told you to fire off a name that we haven't talked about here on this podcast that we could talk about for you. And so here we go. Connor, I'm excited. Not only new names, but new names from the people. I love it, man. How you doing?
I'm good, man. It's the democracy here, right? I mean, we are literally letting I screenshotted 5 messages I got. I will shout all of you out appropriately and just jumped into the tape, right? And some of the names you recognize, it could have been someone you had written down during summer scouting, but I also tried to make a point to really dive into tape, deeply for the first time on some of these guys. So this is a cool exercise. It's a good way to do it. It helps us get more names on the show.
Yep.
And listen, we always say this, Trevor, this is a community. It's not just me and you talking to the people. So to get everybody involved is a pretty unique way for us to do our Stock Watch show.
Yep. We're hoping that this is a good little thank you for you guys, flooding the comments and helping the show grow, all that great stuff. The engagement that we see from the show, obviously it's part of why we love doing it so much. So I'm excited to get to these 10 guys. Shoot, I was going to say something before. Oh yeah. Apologies for my microphone on the mock draft episode. A couple of you guys were commenting on that, and when I was going to listen back, I heard that it was like super choppy. It's weird. That room that we have, it's a podcast room in PFF, but Connor didn't tell me that my mic was choppy while we were recording because it wasn't for him. No. I think it was the internet. Like because we're fully transparent on the show, and that room in PFF, like sometimes the internet can be super spotty. And it also took a long time for the podcast to upload the files when we were done. So I wonder if it was like the internet was so poor, it was like clicking in and out with my audio, because you didn't hear anything that was wrong on the audio when we were recording it. And I didn't hear it till afterwards when Ryan was going through edits. But I just want to say to the people, I appreciate you powering through that one. Obviously, that's a big deal. The mock draft episodes getting a lot of views, getting a lot of eyeballs, and we really appreciate it. So I wish the audio was better for you guys, but again, really appreciate you guys powering through. Won't record in that room again. I'll record somewhere else. Hopefully we don't have that problem again, but just want to say that to the people.
The good news, we got a podcast room. The bad news, the internet's not working.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's weird because it hasn't always been like that. We've recorded, that's the same room that we record the post-draft, or that I record the post-draft episodes from. And we haven't had that problem before, but you got to switch it up. We got a couple of different rooms at PFF that I can commandeer, steal from people that might have important meetings. The podcast is more important. They understand. They get it. They're addicts. All right. We got 10 guys we want to get to. I will let you go first. Who's the first player that you want to bring to the table here for Stock Up, Stock Down?
Iowa center Logan Jones.
Nice.
This is a recommendation or a suggestion or an ask from Jack Bagesk. Or if it's Bageski, I apologize, Jack. Listen, this guy, some of you might recognize right off the bat because he was on Feldman's Freaks, Logan Jones. He is a converted defensive lineman in the Feldman's Freaks write-up. Jones has the Iowa squat record at 695 pounds. He has clocked a 153 10-yard split, which would be a record for an Iowa offensive lineman. And like, think of the offensive linemen that have come out of this program. That's where it's.
You telling me that he's hit the squat record at Iowa? The only better squat record in the country might be Penn State's.
You would think, right? It has to be like, this is top 5. You're talking about Alabama, Georgia, Iowa, Penn State.
Right.
Here's the one that is just galaxy. Like a 409 shuttle. That would be, to put, I want to put into perspective for people, what that would be. So the average on Mock Draftable, I want to make sure I have this right, is 4.66.
Dude.
Yeah. The average. 4.66.
That's nuts. I mean, he's flying. What'd you say it was? 409?
409.
What's the percentile on that for interior offensive linemen?
I think it would be the best. Let's look right now. Yeah, it would be the best. So the best ever that we have in the database is Jason Kelce. Shocking.
Shocker.
At 4.14.
Wow.
I know.
Okay. All right. How's the tape? Does the tape match?
So let's jump into the tape. Right. This is what I wrote down from watching his games this year. Shocker on the first line. Explosive athlete in the run game. Whoa. This is why they pay me the big bucks, folks. I can take the data and translate it to tape scouting reports. He is so quick into the rep. It's truly, it's not shocking when you see the numbers, but it is nice that it actually translates in pads. He gets on top of linebackers before they could even diagnose the play. He struggles to consistently sustain blocks. There are so many times where he snaps the ball, he just launches off the line of scrimmage, and he's right on the linebacker. And the linebacker it's like trying to just read his keys and understand what's happening in front of him. And he just doesn't hold the block long enough. It's almost like a timing issue in a sense. So that's something I want to see him improve, is just sustain those blocks to really make a really good run game into a great one. When he gets under defenders, he could dump them, even if they're, bigger than him. This is someone that when you look at Logan Jones, I want to see his listed here. So his listed is 6'3", 293. So obviously you're looking for him to play in the 300-pound range at the NFL level, which I think he will. Okay. I'd love to see just better snap-by-snap intensity. I wrote down I'd like to see it go from, it's at a 7 right now. I'd love to see it go up to an 8 or 9. And what I mean by that is it's just, there's plays where he dumps nose tackles. He plays through the whistle. There's also times where he doesn't sustain a block, and it feels like you just want a little bit extra grit and edge. And I don't think it's a demeanor thing. I think it's one of those things where he's such an explosive athlete that is his mental and his athleticism and his technique are trying to tie together, and they're just not tied together because the athleticism is so far ahead of everything else that when he does miss a rep, he's trying to process everything. So it's where sometimes it's like, man, you're just so gifted. Just go out there and play, right? Like, just go out there and play, get your hands on someone, scratch and claw, fight. Don't be afraid to get into a street fight at times. The hand play.
You need that at center. You need
it at center because you're asked all the time to get out of the gate and go to linebackers. You're pulling on DBs. Sometimes you're sitting your ass down and trying to hold a nose tackle at the point of attack. It is a very difficult position to play. And that's just the physical side, not getting into the mental side of what you have to identify. The hand placement's still developing. There's times where he just throws them high or late or, once again, I'm really nitpicking here. This is an outside zone starting center at the NFL level with the right coaching.
There you go.
Yeah, okay. I think so. I think that he's just going to have to continue to get bigger and stronger. But if I was looking for a development, if he declares and I'm looking for a developmental center, round 3 to 4, because of his testing, this is who I'm taking. And you look at schemes, we talk about Mike McDaniel all the time, takes undersized centers, but yeah, Logan Jones, he's just such a unique athlete, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. And obviously that's sort of what you want your baseline to be, I would say, when we talk about the NFL level, because obviously like tape, technique, things like that helps you hone in on being a better football player. There's no doubt about it. But for basically every position in the NFL, outside of quarterback, because it is a unique position just to itself. There's an athletic threshold about playing in the league. And the better of an athlete you are, the more margin for error you almost have as a player. And so it's the special ones that can be the great athletes that are able to tie in the great technique and the timing and the football IQ and things like that. But, some of the best football players that we've even seen come through over the last 4 to 5 years, guys that we love, some of my guys on our list, sometimes it's the guys who just play the game so well, like they play it the right way. The technique is there, the leverage, the hand placement, the IQ, anticipation, all of that, whatever it is, but they're just not athletic enough. And it can be a deal breaker or a deal maker. And I think that it's a really good baseline for Jones to have that sort of athletic profile to where, all right, maybe it's not perfect outside of that, but that's the stuff that you want to bet on. So
yeah,
man. I like it.
Ascending prospect.
He was somebody who has gotten a shout out. And I'm glad that you were talking about him when you sent me over your list, because he's somebody who has gotten a couple of shout outs in my Instagram DMs and some of the tweets that you guys have been sending us as well. So I had not gotten to him yet. He was on my watch list because of the shout outs that you guys have done. So there we go. I'm glad that we got him in the show. The first guy that I want to bring to the table was a popular one. Derrick Harmon, the defensive tackle from Oregon. We had a lot of people shout him out in just the comments of that episode, which I had more people reach out to me and mention him, but in just that comments of that show where we were requesting mailbag players, Agent Jordy, Khan, Alex Hernandez, Josha, and then even friend of the show, Bro Schmo, who I know you guys love his YouTube channel as well. We've collaborated with him in the past. I've hopped on his show and done a mock draft with him before. He even reached out to me earlier this week. Didn't even know that I was going to talk about him, but specifically asked about Derrick Harmon. So all those people have already reached out, and I wanted to make sure that I got him on the radar because he's been somebody that you guys have been shouting out quite a bit. So he's a former 3-star prospect, plays at Oregon, like I mentioned, but he actually started his college career at Michigan State. When he was in high school, though, I'll go back to that, played both offensive and defensive line for all 4 years that he was in high school. So this guy has a ton of experience within the trenches. Committed to Michigan State, redshirted his first year, and then he was a rotational player his second year at Michigan State, then a full-time starter in his third year at Michigan State. Really good run defender last year. He's listed at 6'5", and then at Michigan State, I think they had him around like 320, 325, which 6'5", 320, 325 for an interior defensive lineman. I mean, that's a big boy. And
that's a large human.
He had pretty nice run defense grades because of it. 81.1 run defense grade last year. The pass rush grade from him last year was pretty low. The pass rush win percentage was below 10%. This year, now he's at Oregon, they've got him listed at 310. And I can tell you, that's not just Oregon lying. You can visibly see, because his grades were so different pass rush-wise and run defense-wise over the last 2 years, one at Michigan State, one at Oregon this year. I went back and I watched some of his Michigan State stuff. He is visibly a bigger player at Michigan State. He's got a lot more weight around the midsection. He's got some more weight in the lower half, and he has a lot more weight up top as well. And, it's a decent amount of weight around the midsection. So you probably could have looked at him at Michigan State and said, okay, you could probably lose a little bit of that. But he wanted to be a really good run defender. And I think that's what he was when he was at Michigan State. So now with him at Oregon weighing 310, to me, just visually, he very clearly has lost at least 15 pounds from what we saw at Michigan State, maybe even a little bit more. And the pass rush numbers this year are much better. 87.2 overall grade this year at Oregon. 91.4 pass rush grade through 4 games for him. 20.6. Remember, I said his pass rush win percentage last year was like a 9.7%. This year it is a 20.6. So it is much different. He is so much better at rushing the passer because he feels lighter. Specifically, I mentioned the weight in the midsection, man. It's not there nearly as much as it was for him in the past. It looks like he has really shed the bad weight and kept a lot of the good weight on. He'll show you some nice finesse moves that he's working on. He's got a nice little club rip combo. He'll execute the arm over move. He likes to do a swim and an arm over move. So those are kind of the things that he does pretty well. He's got fast hands too. He's got plus length because he's 6'5" as an interior defensive lineman. But I think I'm going to be lower on him than what it sounds like some of the addicts are going to be, where, you know, he would fit in y'all's interior defensive line rankings. Because one, do you remember Tim Settle coming out of Virginia?
Yeah.
So Tim Settle, and he's still in the NFL. Like,
I was just saying, I heard his name the other weekend. I was like, oh, Tim Settle. It was literally like the, what's it called, meme of DiCaprio in
oh, when he's pointing at the TV?
Yeah. Great movie. And it's totally mine. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Yeah, that's literally what I felt like when I heard Tim Settle's name the other day.
So he started his career with Washington. He was a 5th-round pick. He played for Buffalo. Now he plays for the Houston Texans. I think he's my comp for Harmon, and he was a 5th-round pick because the build is pretty similar with these guys. Settle kept a lot of weight, like up top, like above the waist, and he was just uniquely not as well built, lacking that in the pants below the waist, like at the glutes and the hamstrings and the quads, specifically like the calves and the ankles. Like, he just it's more of a narrow build in his lower half, and Harmon's kind of built like that, even with that extra weight around the midsection now off of him. And the reason why I bring that up is not to, you know, be body shaming or anything like that. It goes into the run defense grades with him, because the run defense grades now, with him weighing a little bit less, he doesn't still have that power in the lower half to really be able to hold the point of attack. And he just has a 61.1 run defense grade this year. So he's clearly sacrificing size and strength to be a little bit faster and to be a better pass rusher. I don't know exactly where he's going to settle in when it comes to what that ideal weight is for him to
where he's going to Tim settle in.
You know,
nailed it.
That's why they pay you the big bucks, brother. That one right there. Just the Tim Settle pun, which may have never been done before in human history. And so I just wonder where he's going to fall with the weight and where he's going to play at. You look at the body type for him, best case scenario, Christian Barmore. Like, that's sort of the body composition, play style comp of, like, if you think the best of Derrick Harmon at Oregon, you think that it's going to be him gaining a little bit of weight, but it makes him even more powerful, even more explosive. I'd like for him to be a little bit more violent in his pass rush moves as well. And then you get to Christian Barmore. But if not, it's somewhere on the scale a little bit lower of, like, okay, now we're talking maybe Tim Settle, like maybe a Justin Jones as well, a rotational defensive lineman who's sort of built the same way, close to 6'4", 6'5", with that extra length. That's sort of the scale that I feel like he is on. But I am more towards I think Tim Settle's a better comp than, like, the highs of a Christian Barmore. So a lot of you guys have shouted out Derrick Harmon from Oregon, and those are my initial thoughts on him watching a couple of games here in 2024.
Very interesting. While you were talking about him initially, I was just adding him to my doc and you know, kind of writing that background, because it's very helpful when you go through this like when you really do full tape dives for 7 rounds of this, starting probably closer to December rather than the buildup we've been doing right now. And that's an interesting evolution for a guy, right? Where you're talking about playing on the defensive line and a 15-pound difference and a totally different role. It's it sounds like it's good for him this year, right? Like, it's kind of helped him pop a lot more, especially the amount of people asking us about him and the way he's grading out in the system. So it seems like the transfer was actually a good move for him.
And I agree. And I will say this too. I really did not like Settle as a prospect when he was coming out of Virginia, for a lot of the same reasons that I'm kind of talking about with Harmon. Is I'm a little bit skeptical now of what he could be as a run defender, just again, because of how he is built. Settle, since he has gotten to the NFL, has sort of rounded out his mass and his strength, and he is a stronger player. So you go through a couple of off seasons in the NFL, you get to a healthy weight that you feel good about how strong you are, yet how fast you want to be. And so he could sort of be like a developmental player in that regard, because clearly it's very in flux right now of what he was last year versus what he is this year. But it'll be interesting to monitor with him, because he is a 4th-year guy. He is a senior, and I think he'll probably come out in the draft this year. But, well, actually, he'd be a redshirt junior this year. So I guess he's got 1 year of eligibility left, but we will see. Who you got next?
South Carolina safety Nick Emmanwori.
Yeah,
right? Emmanwori?
Emmanwori. Yep.
Emmanwori.
Yeah.
I know this is a name that we actually have kicked around on the show a little bit because he's such an interesting player. Thank you, Luke Lowry, who asked for this one. Emmanwori, I mean, he's 6'3", 227 pounds. But to be fair, South Carolina has played him 86 snaps in the box, 61 in the slot, and 61 at free safety. I mean, there's reps that you turn on the tape, and he's out there. Like, he's lined up on Mars. And you're like, damn. It's like Cam Chancellor status when you're that big and you're out there at times. So Emmanwori was a big standout as a freshman. And he really is this hybrid safety linebacker that they use him in all kinds of roles. I love him as a future outside linebacker that can be a big nickel in certain packages. If you want to have a guy that can match up with tight ends, he can kind of play that form of the slot or an overhang and still help you out in the box against the run. I don't know about every down. I thought that he was a little stiff in space at times. There was a couple of times where I just thought he couldn't flip his hips or he couldn't come to balance against a more shifty runner. He catches his interception opportunities with great length. Like, that's what you got to love about this guy. When he's in position, he can catch the football and he can make a play with long arms. I think that he's somebody, to me, that is a really interesting hybrid player, as the NFL is in this weird state that teams are trying to run the ball when they have lighter boxes and they're trying to get outside zone working and attack your DBs and make your DBs tackle. This is the kind of player that teams will love to have as a third linebacker or a third safety or both, to kind of have an answer in sub-package roles to do a lot of different things. So I liked his instincts. I think there was some bad angles to the ball. I think he's not somebody I would necessarily want in man coverage a lot, more in zone coverage where he could see things in front of him. But I love that size and physicality against screens. Like, when he sees a screen, he marches downhill. He's got speed to play it downhill. He's physical against the ball carrier. So Emmanwori was somebody that, people have asked us about because he is a unique player. You don't see a lot of guys playing free safety snaps at 6'3", almost 230 pounds. I think it kind of reminded me, we've seen some guys flip back to linebacker at the NFL level. The Jets did that with Jamian Sherwood. He was a safety at Auburn, and now they play him as an outside linebacker. But the way they play him at times, it almost feels like a third safety. That's how I kind of feel like Emmanwori's NFL projection will be as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, you look at sort of what DeMarvion Overshone has been for the Cowboys, where
good call.
He's sort of been this, like, safety linebacker. It's different because they're different players, but like the conversation with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah of like, okay, slot defender, safety, linebacker. Now, Owusu-Koramoah is a little bit smaller, so it's not the same sort of argument that we're talking about here. But Emmanwori, I don't know if you saw, like, he is also on Feldman's Freaks list. I don't know if you knew this. He's 11 on the list.
I think that's when we started to quickly mention him on this show. That's when he popped. Yes.
Yes. The numbers that Feldman has for him in this article: 6'3", 227 pounds, broad jumped 11.4. Insane.
It's ridiculous.
Vertical jumped 42 inches, 24 reps of 225, squats 565 pounds. And Shane Beamer said that he almost hit 23 miles an hour.
Oh, the straight line
on GPS is stupid.
It's the straight line explosiveness, and he is built like a brick shithouse. I have zero questions about that. I think the change of direction, agility, is what I want to know about more than those things. But there's no denying. I mean, this dude he's a different one.
So with him, I think I brought him up when we did summer scouting because I did watch him. And last year's tape kind of had the same exact thoughts with you of okay, this is what I like. This is what I'm a little bit skeptical of. And it's that lateral movement. It's that agility with him. It's that stop and start stuff that sometimes you just have to have as anybody who's playing in space at the NFL level, because the ball is just coming out so quick. These guys next to you who are catching the football are so quick. You got to be able to react to it. And I was a little bit skeptical about that. I will say this. There is a hint of, okay, you're in the right place, right time. But I also think, like, okay, you also put yourself in the right place, right time. And so Emmanwori has at least put himself in those good situations to where sometimes you go, all right, well, they kind of threw the ball right to him. He's still there. A couple of those interceptions and forced incompletions, he still puts himself in those situations. So I don't want to totally take that away from him because I think he is better than what I watched from last year's tape to at least what I can see from him in coverage this year. So, all right. Man, I got a fun one that I want to get to next. But before we get to that, best part about football season, it's always about checking the post-game stats, right? Which wide receivers will score 2 touchdowns in a game, which quarterbacks threw for more or less than 300 yards, like all that good stuff. If you think that you can pick what people are going to do before kickoff, you got to play Pick 6 from DraftKings, an official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. You download the DraftKings Pick 6 app, select between 2 to 6 players. You look at their stats and you just say if they will have more or less than a certain stat that's right in front of you. It's that simple. For all the first-time Pick 6 players, check this out. New customers, they play $5 on their first Pick 6 set. You get $50 in Pick 6 credits for free. There's all sorts of fantastic matchups that we have coming up this week. Tampa plays against the Falcons. I know that right off the top of my head. So Baker Mayfield, that offense is cooking. If you look at a juicy matchup with Chris Godwin or Mike Evans and you see that their stats and you go, man, they're getting way more or way less, whatever it is of that. I mean, that's just one example. If you think you know a team really well, go check it out. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now. Use the promo code PFF. That's promo code PFF for new customers to play just $5 on your first Pick 6 set. You get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. If you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problems with gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits expire in 6 months. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.com. Sorry, pick6.draftkings.com/promos. All right, my second guy I wanted to bring to the table, Jihaad Campbell, the linebacker from Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
One of the highest graded defenders in the country right now at a 90 grade. And it's, sometimes you see that early on in the season. It's a name that I had not heard of Campbell before. Honestly, he was shouted out. Alex shouted him out in the comments. Jekyll Cat shouted him out in the comments. Like, there are people that were shouting him out, and those were the comments that got like a couple of likes to them, which means that I know that people who are watching and going through the comments were like, all right, I would have said Campbell, and I'll just like this one to make sure that it gets to the top of the list. And it did for me, because sometimes you get like 4 games into the season, it's a name you haven't heard of, they're grading out really well, and you go, all right, small sample size, right? Well, they play like 50 snaps. He's played 259 snaps. Connor, this guy's got a 90.7 run defense grade, 87.4 coverage grade, and a 71.8 pass rush grade. The lowest categorical grade that he has is a 71.8. The man's a stud. He's playing on fire. He's a true junior this year for Alabama. I know Deontay Lawson gets a lot of the publicity, and he is having a better year as well. But Campbell, 6'3", 240 pounds. That's 80th percentile and 50th percentile for an off-ball linebacker. He is a former 5-star edge rusher recruit from New Jersey. I found this fact. At 16 years old, he received a scholarship from Clemson.
Got a scholarship from Clemson before he got his permit to drive.
It's unreal. It's like Ryan Williams, a wide receiver at Alabama. Dude's out here changing multi-billion-dollar entities, and the man can't even vote yet.
It's insanity. It's absolutely insanity.
Oh, man. Can't even have a victory cigar. He's not old enough. It's unbelievable. Anyways.
No, you're right. You got to wait.
He can't purchase it.
Yes.
Just we're rule followers here on this podcast. Just want to make sure everybody knows that. So he played his first three seasons of high school ball in New Jersey, where he's from. But then his senior year, he transferred over to IMG. At IMG his senior year, he played both wide receiver and defensive end, ended up picking Alabama over Clemson, Florida, Georgia, Texas A&M. Those are kind of the final schools that he was deciding between. When he got to Alabama initially, he was an edge rusher, because remember I said he was an edge rush recruit, kind of coming through that recruiting cycle. But eventually that first year that he was playing for the Tide, he did move to off-ball linebacker. Played a lot of special teams and some linebacker work that first year that he was there. But then he had 8 starts last season in 2023. I really didn't know a ton about him, but I mean, the very first thing that stands out is this is a well-built, fantastic athlete playing at the off-ball linebacker position. I mean, he's got the height, he's got the weight, he fills out his frame very nicely. A ton of muscle in the upper half and in the chest and the shoulders and the arms to be super strong there, but also really good weight in the lower half as well to be explosive and hold the line of attack and have good run defense, be a strong tackler. Those long arms really show up when he is diving for tackles and wrapping up these ball carriers. You see that consistently. That's why he has a high run defense grade. Long leg strides make it a breeze for him in pursuit speed when he is getting to the sideline, which is great. I think that as a pass rusher, he's clear. Like, he doesn't, when I say that he's got the edge rush background, I think some people are like, oh, well, if you put him at outside linebacker, like, he's just going to be a natural pass rusher. Not exactly, but he still has a really explosive first step. He can be a consistent threat to the outside shoulder, and he does have a nice kind of like burst and then rip move to the outside that is effective and can disrupt quarterbacks and record those pressures. So even though he doesn't have a super deep pass rush bag, that explosiveness, the rip move, him being able to hezzy and get from one side to the other to cross offensive linemen's faces, that is still an option for him, and he is still pretty good at that, especially when it comes to those interior offensive linemen when blitzing up the A or B gap. So that is all there for him. I think the anticipation can be a tick slow from him. He's still sort of figuring that out. And then coverage, I wrote this down on my notes because the first couple of games that I watched of him, he's still getting that feel in coverage. But then this past game against Georgia, a pretty good feel to me. So it was almost like, all right, well, I can see that you're already getting a little bit better of that stuff. Tackling, he can tend to aim a little bit high, but I think you could fix all that. It's not really like a, some guys aim high because they just kind of want to like hit you or push you and that's it. Like, they don't really want to be physical. They don't want to put you in the shoulders, like anything like that. Sometimes guys who've gone through like shoulder injuries or had stingers or just maybe if they're lower weight profile, they don't actually like to put guys but like on their shoulder because it hurts. I don't really think that's an issue with Campbell. I think he just aims a little bit high just naturally because the pad level is a little bit higher with him being 6'3", which is like 80th percentile for an off-ball linebacker. But those long arms also come in handy when it comes to forcing completions, getting in passing lanes, batting passes down at the line of scrimmage. He had an interception against Georgia as well. Connor, we're looking for off-ball linebackers in this class that can really stand out, that have that size, speed, athleticism, versatility to them. And I'm telling you, man, Campbell is already in my top 3 linebackers. I already put him in my top 3 linebackers for this class because of everything that he brings to the table. And he's obviously doing it with a lot of snaps at a very productive level. So he's got the volume early on this season, and I can't wait to watch the rest of what this year has for him.
I'm with you all the way. I've watched a lot of him on broadcast so far, and sometimes you just kind of know right away when a guy has it at the position, especially in this class where I think we came out of summer scouting a little uninspired with this group at times. It felt like, Barrett Carter has a lot of speed, but the size question's there. We both like Danny Stutzman a lot. Harold Perkins, unfortunate, the situation he's in now with the injury, but he was also a guy where he can kind of be an in-between player. Then it was kind of, you're looking for people after that. Right. I thought at least. I felt like
Kaiser, Lander Barton, like those guys are in this class. And I like
Higgins,
them, but exactly. But how high are you drafting those dudes?
Right. Like that, it feels like Jihaad Campbell is not in that tier. He's in he's gonna go in the first 2 rounds.
Yep,
different kind of cat. Yep, do everything.
He feels like a second-round pick right now to me.
I thought so.
At least, and if the whole year continues for him to play this well, maybe you're talking about LB1, but we'll see. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but he at least gives you the ceiling of an off-ball linebacker that you would find value in within the top 50, top 40 type of picks.
Right. All right. My next one here is Missouri running back Nate Noel.
Okay. I don't know anything about him.
So shout out to Trent Millsap that DM'd me about him. Nate Noel has been in college for a long time. He was at App State before this year. And he played a lot at App State over the years. He had over 1,100 yards in 2021. In 2022, he averaged almost 7 yards a carry. He averaged 6.9 yards a carry. This year, 12 explosive runs already on 66 rush attempts. He's only 5'10", 184, and he looks small on film. Like, he's slender, Nate Noel. But really good burst. He wins the foot race to the edge. Defenders kind of lose him in the zone running game. It feels like he just weaves behind his blockers and through his blockers, and defenders kind of have trouble picking him out because he's small and he runs low in a good way. He has excellent feel for flowing with the run, flowing with his blockers. He's just a total natural in outside zone. It feels like he always makes the right decision. And I don't know if it's a mix of, well, that's what I feel. I feel like it's a mix of he runs so skinny and slender through blockers, and he knows how to put his foot in the ground, and he's really got really good change of direction and short area burst that he can kind of just make it work all the time. When you give him the freedom to get a little momentum and then pick the alley that he wants. I think he's wildly impressive in outside zone. He can make people miss in the open field, cuts, spins, definitely more quick than fast. There's a lot of times where, because of how gifted he is with vision and feel and quickness, he gets to the third level of the defense and it's like, dude, green light. You got a 40, you got a 50, you got a 60-yard touchdown, and he gets caught, or he can't really, finish the run. That's okay. A lot of running backs are more quick than fast.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to see if he could, continue to be a factor in the pass game. He catches about 3 to 4 passes, nothing crazy, not a ton of explosives in the pass game. And he's 5'10", 184. Pass pro is going to be an uphill battle in this league when you're, let's be real, Trevor, we don't have a lot of 100, sub 190 running backs in the league, right?
Right.
Like the guy you even think of even in that stratosphere is Devon A. Chan right now. So, and he's not, nobody's Devon A. Chan, spoiler alert. So,
not even Devon A. Chan.
What's that? Yeah, right.
Not even Devon A. Chan. He's not even Devon A. Chan.
No, not now. Not without Tua under center. He's certainly not.
That's
So, no, Nate Noel, really interesting player because he's just been he's a super senior. He's been on the college football landscape for a while. He's been productive at App State. He's now productive at Missouri. He is a guy that creates yards, but he's also just so savvy and trustworthy in outside zone. And it wouldn't shock me if he ends up being a day 3 pick that, is an RB3 on a roster going into next year as a rookie because of the change of pace ability he gives you and just how experienced he is as a runner.
I like it, and it makes sense. There's 2 offensive linemen who I've already watched from Missouri in this class who block for him. Armand Membu, who is their offensive tackle, and then Connor Tollison, who is their center. And those guys, the traits that I love about them as offensive linemen is what they can do as zone blockers. So it would make sense that they went and they tried to find a running back behind him who was able to execute zone blocking in that fashion. So I do like it. We're gonna get to a quarterback next. I'm gonna bring a quarterback into the conversation. We're gonna talk about Kyle McCord because I've had quite a few people ask me about Kyle McCord, and it took me a while to get to his tape because I'm not gonna lie, I watched the Ohio State tape last year and I was like,
I don't believe you.
I don't really know if you're telling the truth, but we'll get into it in a second. Before that, we got to tell you that this episode is sponsored by our friends over at BetterHelp. As an adult, question: did you make time to learn for new things as often as you would like? Or do you feel like that was something that was lost when you were younger? Kids, they're always learning. They're always growing. It's very natural for them. But as adults, sometimes we lose that curiosity. Therapy is a great way to help reconnect with your sense of wonder and get that back to school era or learning era. You can get that back because it can really come at any time. I've been doing therapy for 1.5 years. I've said that before on this podcast. I love it. It was something that I needed help kind of getting through mentally, talking to somebody about something initially, but it has evolved to where now I go once every 2 weeks and I get to talk to somebody about all sorts of stuff, relationship stuff, work stuff, like the things that are on my mind. And not only do you understand how you're handling situations in the moment, but you understand this is why I kind of react the way that I do, whether it's childhood stuff or learned behaviors or just surroundings. There's so many things that go into it, and it just helps you know you better. And I would have thought that phrase was silly before I did therapy, honestly. And now it is so true. It really is. It helps you put your best foot forward and be the best you possible. I really mean it. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, right to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist anytime. And you can switch therapists for no additional charge. You can rediscover that curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/NFLSE to get 10% off your first order. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/NFLSE. So Kyle McCord, like we said, coming from Ohio State, now he's at Syracuse, having a good year. Want to give him the shout out there. 82 points or 86.2 passing grade versus a 76.0 passing grade that he had last season. But situationally, things just look so much better. Shout out to Brady, Steven, Matthew. They were in the comments. They were like, hey, we got to hear your thoughts about Kyle McCord. Shout out to Max Chadwick as well, who does the college football show with Dalton Wasserman. Max he's a big Syracuse guy, and so he's been like, Kyle McCord, come on. So I had to watch it, if nothing else, but for Max. But we had a couple of other people shout him out as well. So he is I think he's a senior. He's got to be a senior. Yeah, he's a senior because the first 2 years that he was at Ohio State, he was CJ Stroud's backup. And obviously wasn't taking over for Stroud. Won the starting job before last season, beating out Devin Brown. And it was a good year. I mean, they were 11-1. He played well, but it just felt like there needed to be more there within the offense. When you go back to sort of his recruiting profile, there's a reason why there was, high expectations for him. He was a 4-star quarterback. Some places had him as a 5-star quarterback. He was the Pennsylvania Gatorade Player of the Year, won 3 straight state championships in high school. He was actually teammates with Marvin Harrison Jr., which I somehow didn't know before I looked this up. Which is funny that obviously they both went to Ohio State. They were playing for Ohio State last year. So Ryan Day, after last year, I think it was after the Michigan game, after they lost the Michigan game, would not really commit to Kyle McCord as his quarterback, if I remember correctly. And then McCord was like, all right, I'm out. So he transfers over to Syracuse, and he is playing well. The measurables, he's a little bit smaller. He is 6'3", 220 pounds. That's 55th percentile. So 6'3" actually is a little bit over the 50th percentile average at the NFL. And then 220 pounds is 45th percentile. What I see from him this year, there is a lot to like about him. Some strengths that I wrote down after watching his games this season. Very light on his feet, always bouncing around, ready to throw with a good base. Consistent and fundamentally sound throwing motion, especially, the beginning half of the season. A little bit dicey these last couple of games, but we know that he could do it, and he's conscious about it. The throwing mechanics have the potential to be really high in accuracy scores and in ball placement because of how repetitive they are. I think he is a very nice touch passer from all 3 levels of the field, short, intermediate, and deep. That is what I think is a major calling card to his game. I also think he's a very smart football player. He is somebody who will go through progressions. He will view the whole field as an option to throw the ball to. We've talked about that before with quarterback evaluation, where some guys, it's very limited. They're either looking at a certain concept. Okay, this is a high-low. If the corner stays high, we're throwing it underneath him. If he stays low, we're throwing it over the top of him, right? Things like that, where you're kind of just watching like one defender, or you're splitting the field in half. That's not really McCord. I'm not saying that they don't call those concepts at Syracuse, but there were multiple times when I was watching him and his tape this year where he is looking fully left, fully right, and then finding the right player within the defense. And so I think this is a high IQ guy who understands the game of football and playing the quarterback position at a sort of limitless level where you can sort of teach him and put things in front of him where I'm not going to say everything's going to look perfect, but he's not going to be overwhelmed as a player. He's got a very calm demeanor in the pocket, which I love, but you can tell after big runs or big completions, he is a fiery competitor. So you love that conversation or that combination with him as well. Some of the drawbacks with him, I don't think he has get out of trouble arm strength. I said that I love the touch passes because I think he anticipates things very well. But those moments where it's like, oh, okay, this guy kind of came open a little later than I thought. Let me put my foot in the ground and drive this bad boy straight at them. He doesn't really have that part of his game. When it comes to the escapability, he can extend plays a little bit, but he doesn't seem to have the tools to really be a great out of structure quarterback. He is playing better under pressure this year because it was, going to be honest with you, bad last year. He had a 33.4 passing grade under pressure at Ohio State. It's let me see what it is this year, 77.2, which is great. The big time throw percentage is higher, but the turnover worthy play percentage is also higher naturally. Average depth of target and completion percentage is about the same from him. So to me, he's a quarterback that can give you a lot of repeatable and consistent things. and he can hit a lot of great touch passes, especially in the short to intermediate parts of the field. It's always a live hand grenade when you say this, but he reminds me of Brock Purdy. He has very much the same demeanor, mentality, approach, willingness to see all the different levels of the field. And honestly, Purdy throws with touch excellently. That's what he did well at Iowa State. That's what he does well at the NFL. Now, when people hear Brock Purdy, the reason why it's a live grenade is because he was the very last pick of the draft. Sort of for a reason, because he did not have those tools that you really feel like you can bet on and invest in. But he goes to Kyle Shanahan's offense and he just operates it with so much confidence and so much anticipation, such a high football IQ that it works. You put a good offensive line in front of him, you put a good, reliable run game around him and really good receivers, and guess what? It works for him. So outside of Kyle McCord landing with Kyle Shanahan or Kevin O'Connell, maybe, like, I don't know exactly what he's going to be, because it is a more limited quarterback prospect that I think we're talking about here. But there are things to like, especially through the first 4 or 5 games of this season, that make you think, all right, this is more of a legitimate player, even as maybe an NFL backup, than what we thought he was going to be last year at Ohio State. So there are my Kyle McCord thoughts about a fourth of the way through the season.
But that sounds like a good step for Kyle McCord, considering where things ended last year. Sometimes a guy just needs to be out of the spotlight of, man, like if you're him last year and it wasn't pretty, I thought he underthrew his teammate and friend Marvin Harrison a lot when watching the Marv film from last year or late. It was just, I'm sure things kind of compiled onto him where it was every time something it felt like was going wrong for that team, while they were a very good team last year, it was his fault. And sometimes you just want to get out of that position and just get back to playing football. And I think transferring to Syracuse has allowed him to get back to being more within himself, rather than, if we don't go undefeated and win the national championship, I'm a failure. And I think from a college fan perspective, they might not like hearing that. But from an NFL draft perspective of just playing the position at quarterback, that can really help guys along. We've seen it help guys along the way consistently.
Who you got next? Who's number 4 for you?
All right. Number 4 for me is Virginia Tech pass rusher Antwaun Powell-Ryland.
Gator great.
He is a Gator great. He was with Florida for 3 seasons. I don't know if he did anything with Florida for those 3 seasons.
Hey.
He said, I'm taking my talents out of Florida into Virginia Tech in 2023. This came from Braden Holisek. Thank you, Braden.
Shout out.
7 sacks in 5 games this year. Boy, you wish the Gators had those 7 sacks right now, don't you?
No, I don't.
A couple of them against Cam Ward week 1.
No, I don't, because we might need to blow it all up, to be honest with you.
That's fair. Sometimes it's good to stink, to just really stink, as I've said during many Jets years. 6'2 and an eighth, 242 pounds is what I have him as. I know he's going to be a little bigger listed elsewhere. So, okay. 18.5% pass rush win rate in 2024 so far. Really good start for Powell-Ryland. He is never going to be this big edge-setting run defender. Like, you could just tell that right away. He is not graded out very well against the run in terms of, how well he's been as a pass rusher. As a pass rusher, there is a lot going on here. And I mean, he has really varied his approach in a good way. He knows how to dip his shoulder to get under and around pass blockers that come in high. He shows off a cross chop when he gets to rush wide to knock down that outside hand and turn the corner. He got Marshall's right tackle with the spin move, and it wasn't the kind of spin move where he got off the ball and he just started to spin. He got off the ball, raised his hands like he was going to kind of get into a hand fight, and then spun. It was very impressive. Change of direction and flexibility is just mediocre to me. I don't see him as this overly bendy, flexible, agile kind of rusher. And I'm going to be honest with you, Trevor, for a guy that I have written down at 6'2 and an 8, 242 pounds, that is not a plus run defender and maybe not an average run defender, that's a concern to me. You got to really check even more boxes as a pass rusher. I think he's crafty as a pass rusher. Right. I think he does a lot of smart things with his hands. He wins in a lot of different ways, but he doesn't win with pure flexibility and agility, where in the NFL level, a lot of guys have good technique or a lot of different moves. So, and he doesn't really have NFL level length, I thought, either. He seemed to have mediocre length as well. So, he feels like a tweener between a stand-up guy and a hand-in-the-dirt guy. Good effort. It wouldn't shock me if he ends up sticking to a roster as, a depth edge player for passing downs, a NASCAR package, and you try to get him a little bigger and stronger and develop him into an average run defender. I thought the film was okay. I guess my problem was I saw 7 sacks in 5 games, almost a 20% pass rush win rate, and he does win in a lot of different ways. But I have become the draft evaluator at this position that is just enamored and so deeply attached to insane athleticism, and I didn't see that.
Yeah, my early comp for him was Mo Kamara, because I wanted him to be Mo Kamara, right?
Yeah.
You're smaller, you need to sort of be this passer specialist, but even then, like, I think Kamara played with better bend, and I think Kamara played with better strength too. So I see a lot of the same things when I watched him in summer scouting, and the pass rush win percentage number, that's even better than it was last year. And I liked what it was last year. It was like a 15.7. I was like, oh, okay, that's not bad. Anything in the 18 percentage, I like a lot for Powell-Ryland. I feel like that's a trending up in whatever he's going to be in the NFL. He seems to be putting his best foot forward this season, but I agree. When I watched him, what left me wanting more the most was less of, okay, I wish you were bigger, because that's just, it's kind of stupid to say that. Like, he's not going to get taller. Like, so it's dumb for me to necessarily like say like, oh, this is something that I wish he could work on, get taller. But I wish he was more flexible. I do wish he had better bend to him, because if he did, I think that we'd be talking about a pretty decent pass rusher and somebody who could be a good pass rush specialist, which is actually a good transition into one of the guys that I want to talk about, who is built very similarly. Caleb on IG shouted this player out, and a couple of other people have as well, but Caleb most recently did. Our Mason Thomas from Oklahoma, who is grading out really well this year. He is a true junior, and he's built, again, very similarly. He's like 6'2". I think they got him listed like around like 243. So it's almost the exact same build as Powell-Ryland. Former 4-star edge rusher, former state championship winner, from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, former track guy as well. I saw he ran track in high school, the 100 meter, the 200 meter, the 400 meter, which is great. Played in 10 games as a true freshman in 2022. Played in 9 games last year as sort of a rotational player, and now he's getting a lot more in the mix. His dad, funny enough, with the Gator connection, played Harvey Thomas played for the University of Florida in the 90s, so he's got a little bit of a college football and SEC background there to him. But think of exactly how you thought of Powell-Ryland, but a player who is a little bit more explosive, a little bit stronger, and bendier around the edge. Like, that's the type of guy that we're talking about here, because the weaknesses for our Mason Thomas, he's going to struggle with lack of length at the NFL level. He just is. He just does not have great arm length, being at 6'2" for an edge rusher. I mean, we're talking about 10th percentile and 5th percentile in height and weight. It doesn't look like he could put a lot more weight on his frame. Sort of what you see is what you get. It kind of is what it is. And he can get handled one-on-one when it comes to going up against guards or tackles, sometimes tight ends, but he can normally get the better of tight ends and get clean against tight ends. When it comes to run blocking and run defense, he can get blocked one-on-one. He can get washed out, and that kind of just sucks. I think he is a specialized pass rusher, because starting with the bad and getting to the good, turns a tight corner around the edge of offensive tackles. No false step out of his rush, which means he is exploding out of that front foot. He is loaded, and the second that ball moves, he is up and into the field, getting into the shoulder of the offensive tackle. He is a super high-energy player, maximizes that natural leverage to get whatever kind of speed to power he possibly can by getting a little bit lower than offensive tackles, which you like to see. And I think the hand usage was, if I'm remembering what I was thinking of when I was watching Powell-Ryland, the hand usage for our Mason Thomas is like, it's just second nature. It was kind of like Latu last year, where when Latu started making contact with an offensive tackle, something was moving, right? I mean, like, he was either smoothly getting into a club rip, he was two-hand swiping, it was some sort of chop rip, he was getting across the face, like something was happening with his hands to keep him clean 90% of the time. That's also how I feel when I watch Thomas. Now, Thomas's numbers, they do look good from a PFF grade perspective. He has an 85.5 pass rush grade, but that's pretty propped up by a 93.0 pass rush grade that he had against Tulane. The rest of the games this season have not been consistently as high. And the 13.5% pass rush win percentage, that is sort of evidence to that. It's funny, that number is lower than it is for Powell-Ryland, but I think I like our Mason Thomas better in what he could be as that like speed rush specialist because of specifically how much more flexible he was and how easy it was for him to turn the corner and actually be a speed rusher. So what that I don't love him. I think he is a specialized player at the NFL level. He's just a small edge rush guy, but was really productive against Tulane. We'll see how he plays the rest of the season. I actually don't really think he's a candidate to come out this year. With him being a true junior, I think he's going to stay for another season. So we're probably going to be talking about him next year as well. But those are some preliminary thoughts because a couple of people were asking me about him after that really good Tulane game. So,
all right, my last one. I do have a bonus player after this, and I know you
love that.
Bonus. My last one here. LSU wide receiver Kyren Lacy, who I know you've watched already.
Yeah, yep.
This was from Peyton Dunn. Thank you, Peyton. 6'1 3/4, 215 pounds. Kyren Lacy transferred from Louisiana Lafayette after the 2021 season. He's got 25 catches through 5 games already with 5 touchdowns. 3 were against Nicholls State, but he's already got 5 touchdowns. I'll be a little short and sweeter with this one because I know you've gotten into him before, but with Kyren Lacy right now, he's putting up big numbers as well. And, obviously, you watch the tape, you could see some of the ways they used Malik Neighbors. He's gotten to step into that role with a lot of the motion and some deep targets. Lacy, to me, first off, he's got a dense build, which you really, really like. Like, he's not the skinny receiver out there. Yep. And that's kind of the benefit when a guy is a fifth-year senior. He's been on a college weight and nutrition program at a high level for a long time, that he comes into the NFL with an NFL body already. And that's going to be Kyren Lacy from day one. As a player, as a receiver, it's clear that this guy has really worked on his footwork. That's what jumped out to me. I just saw precision and nuance and a lot of detail in his routes and it's interesting because he's playing with a quarterback like Garrett Nussmeier, who Nussmeier's game is more drop back rhythm and timing. So it's funny, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just different. Malik Neighbors and Jane Daniels could make these explosive, long, extended, drawn-out plays, and Malik Neighbors is shot out of a cannon. Same with Brian Thomas. With Nussmeier and Kyren Lacy, I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying it's different. I see a lot more of the drop-back timing game where Lacy's steps in his routes need to be perfectly timed with Nussmeier's drops and what his release point. And it's impressive to watch them work together, honestly. They clearly have put a lot of time into being backups at this program and taking advantage of their chance to play. And Lacy does some of the little things right besides that. He works back to the ball. He's not a drifter into coverage or a drifter away. There's times where he drifts back into the quarterback to make it a little easier for him. He just consistently works back to his quarterback's throws. I don't think he's very fast. I don't think he's this overly, right? Like he's not this unique athlete or anything like that, but he knows how to separate through detailed routes. And I think he looks much more natural catching the ball this year than he previously has. I liked what I saw, honestly.
I think it's NFL quarterback throwing to NFL wide receiver when it comes to Kyren Lacy. Now, I'm not saying it's like superstar, like, quarterback one, wide receiver one, but these guys are playing at the pro level, right?
That's how I felt. It was a joy to watch because it was, you go from watching NFL tape and then you go to watching prospect tape. And in this industry, it can really feel like a different sport sometimes, whether what they're asked to do, what they are doing, the competition, all kinds of things. And when you watch Nussmeier and Lacy, like the things they are doing on Saturdays this year is giving them a step ahead of a lot of people for what they're going to be doing on Sundays at some point in the future, where neither of them are the most physically gifted prospects in the world, but they are legitimate NFL prospects because of how pro-ready and detail-oriented they are.
I do agree. I agree with you. All right, I got one more guy I want to get to, and then we got a handful of bonus ones that I kind of just want to do rapid fire. Some comments that I want to try to hit as many as possible here. But hey, if you were hiring for your small business out there, we know how it is. You want to find high quality professionals that are right for whatever that role is. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs, they got the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and free. At PFF, we've done a lot of different hirings, and a lot of times it's not just about, okay, does this resume line up with the job description? It's about finding the right people for the job and the right people for your team, right? LinkedIn, it's not just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for new roles, but might be open to the perfect one. And that's a lot of times the best employees that you can find. In a given month, 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking at LinkedIn, you're just looking at the wrong place. LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses, they get qualified for candidates within 24 hours. You can hire a professional like a professional on LinkedIn. With you running a small business, we know you wear a lot of hats. Sometimes you can't put the resources that you need to into making the hire the way that you want to. Hey, that's why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for their hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/stock. That's linkedin.com/stock to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Last name, Get Free and Noah shouted this player out in the comment section of the video where we were requesting these mailbag participants. Eric Gentry, linebacker from USC. Extremely unique individual, to say the least. He is, I got to find his profile here to make sure that I get these numbers right with Gentry. Where is this? Where did it go? Come on. Oh, is it? I might have had it in the off-ball linebacker section because he is technically a linebacker and not an edge rusher. Here we go. So he's a senior at USC. 6'6". You love it. 99th percentile for an off-ball linebacker. Starting off great. 205 pounds. 0th percentile. Now I know some people are going to say, hey, he's listed 215. Don't think he's 215. I have other sources that I think he is less than 215. So he was a 3-star edge rush recruit from Philly. Played both linebacker and defensive end in high school. So that's that versatility is not really anything new for him. Also played high school basketball as well, which, I mean, if he was 6'6", I'd be pissed if he didn't play basketball. Would be a waste. Didn't get to play his senior season of football because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but he actually committed to Arizona State out of high school. In 2021, he was a consensus first team all freshman player at Arizona State as an off-ball linebacker. But then after that season, he ended up transferring over to USC, played 11 games with them in 2022, played 11 games last year, only had 3 starts. Now, he's having a pretty good year. I don't want to take anything away from him. He is having a really good year grades-wise. 91.5 run defense grade despite that lower weight profile, and he had a 90.4 pass rush grade last season. So the run defense grade's a lot higher, and the pass rush grade's not as high, but he does have a 73.0 pass rush grade this season. Above 20% pass rush win percentage in each of the last 2 years. So we talk about guys, 15% pass rush win percentage, 18%, 13%. It's not bad. It's not bad. Above 20% over the last 2 years. Very productive edge rusher. He's I can understand it. And I'm glad that you guys asked about Eric Gentry, because he is just such a unique football player. The length is awesome. I mean, it makes him such a mismatch for even offensive tackles. He wins the length battle. He gets to keep that advantage there. So offensive tackles cannot get into his chest because he's got the full arm extended, especially when he executes the long arm move. He's also really slippery. For a player who's 6'6", you don't often get to say that, but lower weight profile, it kind of makes sense because he's got a extremely slender build. But he knows that I like that he is so conscious of what he does well and what he doesn't, because he understands that he is 200 pounds. He cannot go into the chest of offensive tackles. It will not go well for him. In fact, that's a big negative of his. When he gets locked up with an offensive tackle, it's pretty much curtains. He's not getting off the block. He's getting driven off of his spot. He's too easily moved against his will against other offensive tackles. And it's such a negative that I don't love him as a prospect. I think that he'll be like a day 3 guy, a mid-day 3 guy, but it's hard for him to be more to me because when I see him, the strengths and weaknesses of what he does, the strengths revolve around the fact that he's uniquely long, and the weaknesses are just the fact that he's uniquely light. Remember Charles Snowden from Virginia? I
Yep.
guess I guess we're just shouting out Virginia.
We're like really going into weird Virginia deep cuts today.
Yeah. So Snowden, I thought this same thing. He was this hybrid, like stand-up edge rusher, but off-ball linebacker guy. He ends up getting no, he was undrafted in 2021, and even Charles Snowden was like 240, 245. That'd be 40 pounds heavier than Eric Gentry. And and Snowden really couldn't even cut it with appropriate NFL weight on his frame. And so Gentry, I think, is going to get drafted just because of his unique size. But it's hard for me to see him really being a consistent NFL player because, one, I don't really know what kind of a specialist he is because he's not really a pass rush specialist. He is right now, but that's because he's a full-time player for USC. I don't know if you're going to play him as a pass rush specialist at the NFL level because it's not really where he's trained right now. He's more of just an off-ball backer type of a guy, an outside linebacker type who will walk up to the line of scrimmage and still give you some pass rush reps every now and then. So I don't even know if we have like a specialized role for him. I think he's just this really unique, fun college football player who is going to get a chance in the NFL. I just don't know what to do with him. So that's kind of my thoughts of watching him last year and then watching him this year.
One of the hardest parts about this job, I think, is guys that are really good college players that would be, and I'm not saying this specifically about Gentry, I'm just saying this as a conversation, that would be historical NFL outliers, and you have to be the guy throwing cold water on the fun, and people just look at you and just don't understand. And it just happens. There are outliers, right? There really are, but there's
you don't want to make a living betting on them,
No, or else you'll be wrong a lot. You'll be wrong quite a bit. So
who's a bonus player for you?
Bonus player for me is Skylar Bell, the wide receiver on UConn, who transferred from Wisconsin and is just having a monster season right now. And shout out to my buddy Paul Kagallon, who works with us at Badlands. He is a big UConn guy, and somebody's got to be right. And obviously, UConn basketball phenomenal, but for football,
that's easy.
Yeah, you're like really in it if you're watching UConn football every damn weekend. And my guy Paul is, and just put Bell on my radar. I know Wisconsin fans know about Bell, who he didn't have a ton of success there, honestly. He didn't ever put it all together, and now at UConn, the guy has 500 yards on 21 catches this year. Yeah, so he went for 5 and 141 against Maryland, and then this last week he had 6 for 153 against Buffalo. Like, he's had some monster games, and he caught 3 touchdowns against Buffalo. He's got 4 on the year. He's averaging 24 yards per catch this year. So Bell is somebody that originally from the Bronx, 6 feet tall, 185 pounds. He is consistently getting over the top of the defense, and someone to really keep an eye on in the deeper part of this wide receiver class.
All right. I love it. I love the shout out there. I love the UConn poll. We don't get a lot of them. Travis Jones was my guy a couple years ago. Christian Haynes last year was my guy. So it feels like you get like one, right? You get
Eric
like
Watts all along the Watts Tower. Not many.
Wow.
It's not many, though.
Combine legend Byron Jones.
Right. It basically set world records at the combine. We were all looking around like.
I remember watching that because it was his broad jump that was like 12 feet 4 inches or something insane.
It was the broad jump.
And I remember that happening. And I remember somebody going, Is that the world record? And if it is, the question then was, if it is the world record,
what do we do now?
Does it count? Like, is it sanctioned?
That was
is the combine sanctioned?
My question was, what do we do now with this? Obi Melifonwu?
Oh yes, another
crazy athlete.
Wow. Yeah. Good polls.
The real ones remember C.O. Moore, the undersized rush backer that went to the Raiders actually in the 4th round. Yeah.
Yes. Wow. Good poll. Shout out UConn. Shout out the UConn football program. Okay. Can I do a little rapid fire here? Because
please.
As we were going through the comments,
don't do the handgun celebration. We'll have to throw a flag.
Wait.
Have you seen this now? Like, there's no gun celebrations allowed in any level of football anymore.
I know, but wait, why was I going to do that?
You read rapid fire.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. No, I can't do that. I won't do this. If there's anything that I won't do, it's this. I can't do this, and I'm not going to do this because we're going to get flagged and banned. And I can't wait for me to get the email 12 hours from now.
The YouTube channel doesn't exist anymore.
Taken down. Have you seen them throwing the flags in the bow and arrow celebration?
It's just out of control.
It's just a crock of shit.
It is. What are you supposed to do? After you score a touchdown, what is left to do?
Thank the ref.
You're gonna have to start getting really creative with G-rated celebrations, like hopscotch. I don't know what else we have left.
Can you do rock, paper, scissors? Because technically scissors is a weapon,
no,
right?
No, you can't trust an NFL ref who have the second worst eyes in the world, only behind MLB umpires, to see the scissors and think it's not some kind of weapon movement.
But it is, right? We were told growing up, you can't run with scissors. Why? It's a weapon, you know? You're a danger to yourself when you're running with scissors.
Can't do rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Can't even do rock, paper, scissors.
And it's rock, paper, scissors says shoot anyway. So,
wait,
yeah,
wait, what? We're an hour 10 into this podcast. And We're about to have the.
We're many years into this podcast.
What are we? What is it?
Rock, paper, scissors says shoot.
Who?
Yeah, dude.
What?
I was not raised by barbarians or wolves.
What do you mean? Why is that? It's an unnecessary word.
No, it's not. It's cadence and rhythm.
Rock,
paper, scissors.
Shoot.
No, see, that's the other person doesn't know the timing. If says is in there, rock, paper, scissors, says shoot, you know after says it's a quick fire. But rock, paper, scissors, everybody stares at each other like it's a Western showdown, and then they just throw hands. And then somebody always is like, well, he copied me, and then you got to get a third party involved. It's rock, paper, scissors, says shoot. Because it's cadence and rhythm and timing.
If somebody did says shoot to me, one, I'd look at them like they had 8 heads, and 2, I'd be like, that threw off my rhythm.
No. That's why you need to establish the ground rules before you even go.
All right. Now you're making me do it. Now we have to do it.
You have to do it.
Comment in the YouTube channel. Is Connor out of his mind, or do you say rock, paper, scissors, says shoot? Tell us how you do rock, paper, scissors. Is it rock, paper, scissors, shoot? Is it rock, paper, scissors? Are you an animal and you just end on scissors, or do you throw say in there? I need to know. It's like the cornhole debate. I need to hear from the people.
I Googled this.
Because I think this is nuts.
I just Googled it, and Reddit is confirming that this is a New York City thing.
Okay. That's why the first thing that I said is, what neighborhood are you from?
Yeah, Reddit with many upvotes is confirming that New York City says shoot. Long Island says shoot. Midwest is just shoot. Yeah, wow, this is a regional thing. I can't believe this. Oh my God. It's cornhole and bags all over again.
I know. That's why I need to know.
This is a little more niche. This is a little bit more niche. I didn't realize how niche this was.
Also, yeah. Right. Okay. Anyways, rapid fire for these guys. Because in the YouTube comments, a lot of people were shouting out some players that I think that we've already talked about on the show. So I'm just kind of give my rapid fire thoughts on them. If you have any thoughts on any of these guys, feel free to jump in either at the time or after I'm done, whatever. Dillon Gabriel, quarterback from Oklahoma, highly successful quarterback, was at Oklahoma last year, transferred over to Oregon. A lot of people like him because he's a very accurate quarterback. I think he makes good decisions. He's got some good mobility to him. The fact of the matter is, you just talked about outliers, 2nd percentile in height, 6th percentile in weight. He's just small. And he's just really small for the position. I don't think he is an NFL caliber like quarterback that you're going to go out there and start every single week. So that's my rapid fire thoughts on Dillon Gabriel. Did you have thoughts on him? Yeah,
I did a tape breakdown for him for NBC after the Boise State game because that was a very late night Peacock game. So it's on the NBC Sports YouTube channel if you want to watch it. I highlighted 3 throws that he had. They were really good throws, but I came away after studying him just with the same exact thoughts of you, as that it felt like more of a college film breakdown rather than a guy that I think is a draftable pro prospect.
Yeah. Okay. Jahdae Barron, the defensive back, and I have to say defensive back now for Texas because he was sort of this safety slot defender hybrid over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Now he has played more wide corner than any other position this season. And when I was in Austin this past weekend, I saw that. Now, I'm watching it live. I'm watching a lot of different stuff. So it's not like I could just focus on Barron, but they're trying to test him out as a wide corner, and it must be for the NFL level, right? So this is one of my favorite players, sort of like a my guy type of a player that I've had over the last year, but it's different sort of looking at him as a wide corner. So I do like him as a football player, but I have to go back now and sort of watch him playing a new position there. The other quarterback on the list that somebody brought up is Jackson Dart. Dart, I think he has the highest PFF passing grade in the FBS, but Ole Miss really has not played anybody except for last week. Who did they play last week? Who was it? Was South Carolina?
It was his first struggle. I believe it was Kentucky.
Kentucky, right. And he struggled, and that's hard, right? Because I think the overall thoughts with Dart is, okay, well, what is the outside Lane Kiffin system? And it's really tough to judge a quarterback there. I mean, you had Matt Corral in that system as well.
I was just going to bring up Matt Corral.
Which a lot of people liked. And, he gets to the NFL and he really couldn't handle it. And Jackson Dart, I think Jackson Dart is a better prospect than Matt Corral was, just arm talent-wise. But he performs well under pressure. But, when you move him off his spot, for example, true, you have to sort of think on your feet type of plays, the passing grade drops dramatically for him. And so it's just going to be, now that we're to the teeth of their SEC schedule, this is a little bit better of a test for you, but it's going to be hard to sort of project what Jackson Dart is outside of what Ole Miss's offense is. So I don't know if you had thoughts on that either.
No, I agree with you, and I'm glad you brought him up because a lot of people have been asking about him until that Kentucky game. Everybody was kind of like, why is nobody talking about Jackson Dart? And he is kind of the prototype. Well, I'd call Dylan Gabriel more of an example, but he's not far off from one of those guys where it's like, you hate to throw cold water on a guy, and he's an NFL prospect. I want to make that very clear with Jackson.
He at least has NFL tools, I think.
Yeah. I mean, going back to summer scouting, I had him as QB7 in that group. So I saw NFL tools, but you're right. The system makes him a difficult guy to evaluate until you get a game like Kentucky where you start to see the struggles that can come up in a real football setting, I guess is what I would call it.
Right. All right, 3 that I'm going to go really quick on. Harold Fannin Jr., the tight end from Bowling Green. We brought him up a couple of episodes ago as the new name to the show. 91.9 receiving grade this season.
He's legit.
He is all of Bowling Green's offense. He's an explosive guy when it comes to straight line speed and yards after catch, but he is a little bit stiff when it comes to change of direction and lateral movements. And I think that it's not like he's this first round tight end type of a player, but he is interesting as a receiver because the build's a little bit smaller. He's like 6'3", 230 pounds. So he's more of just a receiving tight end, but interesting, a bigger wide receiver for sure. Jaquindon Jackson, the running back for Arkansas, who is a bigger running back. He started his career as a quarterback. And again, this is somebody that we've talked about on this show before. So I just kind of wanted to summarize my thoughts that I've already given more deep notes on in previous episodes. He's bigger, he's taller from that quarterback background, but he's got good footwork. He's got some good elusiveness to him. I think sometimes he's got to really lower the shoulder. Sometimes you got to know, all right, this isn't the time to wiggle. This is the time to lower the shoulder. Pass pro, he's just cut blocks way too much. Needs to be better in pass protection. I think he's a pretty good receiver, a natural receiver. I think he's just a natural athlete, but he is definitely somebody that is interesting in this running back class. And that tier 4 or tier 3. And then the last one is Nick Martin, the linebacker from Oklahoma State. I mean, I love the mentality that he plays with. Dude plays with his hair on fire at all times, but he is small for a linebacker when it comes to NFL size. And so heat-seeking missile, but there just aren't many linebackers that are his size, just in height and overall size, that can really make it at the NFL level. Even Nakobe Dean, who was one of the best defensive players of the year when Georgia was winning that national championship with him at middle linebacker. Even he is struggling right now as a starting linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles. So it's just one of those things that, again, you love the college player. I love the fierceness that he plays with. I think he could play in the pros as a backup and a special teams guy for sure. I just don't know if he'll ever be a starter because of the lack of size with him. So there we go.
Good stuff all around. We jammed a lot of names into this show today.
Yeah, we did. But that's what it's all about. We want to get the people involved. We want to get some new names to the table. That's what now the month of October is all about. Very excited to see how the rest of this college football season plays out. We'd love to hear your thoughts on our thoughts as well. Best way to do that, youtube.com/@NFL Stock Exchange. If you're audio only, as always, at Tampa Bay Trey, at Kyren J. Rogers. You can hit us up on Instagram and Twitter. Anything else before we get out of here, my friend?
Man, what's coming up next is the real question, I guess. We did a mock draft this week.
We did do a mock draft this week. Yeah.
We'll have something up our sleeve.
Yeah.
We might be fixing the Jaguars.
Cool.
Ah! No, it might be a little early, but man, Doug Peterson might just walk away from this thing.
We're unfortunately close to fixing the Jaguars.
Yeah, we're about 2 losses away from fixing the Jaguars.
In a row. What's their schedule? Yes. Who do they have next?
They played the Colts this week.
They play the Colts this week at home. If they lose to the Colts,
they're favored by 2.5 points, which kind of shocks me.
If they lose to the Colts, we're going to be on Doug Peterson fired watch.
Right.
And then they play the Bears in London overseas. It's one of the overseas games. And
if they lose, Shad Khan might just make the team stay there. Like, all right, we can't go back to Jacksonville. Let's just start over here.
Dude, it gets so horrendous for the team after that. I mean, actually, they get to host the Patriots, so that should at least be a dub.
It's horrendous?
Wait a second. They're playing back-to-back London games? They play the Bears at 9:30 a.m. on a Sunday, and then they play the Patriots at 9:30 a.m. on a Sunday.
So they're just staying there. Yeah. Yes, back-to-back games.
Well, you can't. Are they can't fire Doug after the first of a doubleheader in London.
They could.
Can they?
Just be like, figure it out. Take a boat home. We don't care. Swim. Whatever you got to do.
You said swim.
Not our problem.
Yeah, the Fix Your Franchise series will be back this year because we know that you guys love those. We hope that we don't have to start them in October.
No. I hope Jacksonville figures it out soon.
It really feels like we might be there. Anyways, appreciate you guys watching and listening. Thanks so much. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That's Connor Rogers. We will be with you next week, Monday, for whatever we feel like the episode is going to be. We'll see you guys then.